Great, you've just completed one section of that validation report where we've validated the whole RPL process for Susan. So just so I can show you what I mean, this was the process. The whole procedure from when Susan applied for the application, we interviewed her maybe over the phone, doesn't have to be face to face, and guided her through what would be relevant evidence, and she also negotiated what was convenient for her to access. Then we had taken all of that information away. She might have had to have sent it to us after the interview. So during this period here, she's actually sent through the evidence that we both agreed upon, and then as the assessor, please excuse me, we've then collated that, mapped it out, and made a determination on, whether that's sufficient enough and valid evidence. So that has then generated what's called the competency conversation, as you know, and that might be for supplementary evidence, or if there was still some gaps there, that could help fill in the gaps with the competency conversation. This is still part of the process. Don't forget, in this process, gap training was then provided to Susan, and that allowed her to complete a lot of the aspects of it that were vet related in a vet context, as opposed to a K-12 curriculum context. So that was the process. But we're going to do a different type of validation now, and in this next task we're actually going to do like a bit of a mini validation that was part of that original RPL. Okay, so this is the validation that occurred back up within the RPL, and I'll just take you back up here to where you have to go, to that RPL Susan.doc document. So double click on that. Now here's a new IT skill. If you're a PC user, hit the Control and the End key. Control, then the End key. That will always take you to the last page in a document. Mac users, you could try Command and an End key, but if that's not working, just Google the shortcut steps for you there. My apologies for not being a Mac user. Alright, so that's taken you to the last page of that document. Now you can hit the Page Up button. That'll take you to the previous page, and you'll see there's a whole lot of highlighted information there. So the RPL we were considering is the 4 units. Now we have to see, just with the evidence that she's gathered for recognition of prior learning, we have to see whether that is going to meet the rules of evidence and be satisfactory. And don't forget, we actually found later on that we gave her some gap training. So we're probably going to find in this document that it isn't all going to be satisfactory, all right? So just as your supervising assessor, let me guide you through, as you're allowed to, as a new trainer and assessor with a Certificate 4 entry level. Let me just guide you through this process. So we can see the highlighted ones: plan, organise and deliver group-based learning. Yeah, well, she's a school teacher, so she teaches groups. We might have to have a deeper look at that. Plan, organise and facilitate learning in the workplace. Well, just from the unit name alone, that's already ringing some alarm bells. K-12 curriculum isn't learning in the workplace. All right, so we might have some issues with that. Provide work skill instruction. Well, the K-12ers, they're not actually performing work skills, so probably have an issue with that. And finally, make a presentation. Right, that one is probably about the only one, just at a glance, looking at things holistically, that we'd get the full recognition of. So let's just keep moving through. Did she provide satisfactory documents? Yes. Did she respond to the questions in the competency conversation satisfactorily? Yes. Now all that's been provided to you. We agreed that there was no practical tasks required in the recognition of prior learning. She didn't have to demonstrate anything practically to us, so we've just written not required. Third-party reports, they were satisfactory as well. Moving down, so we've highlighted the 4 units that relate, because this is a generic TAE 40110 form, so we've just modified it according to our needs. Now this is the areas that I'll need you to complete. So working with me as your supervising assessor, how candidate met unit of competency rules of evidence as a whole. Okay, so when you look at the unit as a whole, so did they provide evidence for 401A? 401A, plan, organise and deliver group-based learning. Well, let's just go a little bit more deeply now, because she does teach groups as a primary school teacher, but let's just start applying best practice and going through and opening up our unit. So I've gone straight to the critical aspects. Sorry, I had all of this organised in advance, so when you validate it might take a little longer. I have opened my current unit for TAE DEL 401A, plan, organise and deliver group-based learning. And it said it needed 2 consecutive sessions, 40 to 60 minutes, 1 session delivered to a different learner group. Okay, well, she certainly does all of that, but let's just go and check some other aspects of this unit. Well, yeah, it says this unit describes the performance, outcomes, skills and knowledge required to plan, organise and deliver training for individuals within a group. So application, yeah, so look, there's nothing specific about workplace. I think at the moment, as a whole, we can look at that. So let's agree that we can say that it was valid. All of this RPL evidence would actually work for that one. So we'll hit yes. You will have to type this in. These will be blank for you. Please excuse me. A means authentic under the rules of evidence. Yes, we have seen her face to face. She's presented these forms. We have the copy of her identification. We've done everything we can to make sure all of the evidence she gives us is Susan's actual work. So yes, it's authentic, and yes, it's current because of the dates on the CV, dates of the third-party reports, etc. It's all quite current, the evidence that she's provided. So we'll look at the next one. 402A, plan, organise and facilitate learning in the workplace. We'll just holistically, from the name of the unit alone, it hasn't been in the workplace. We can hit no for that. TAE DEL 301A, which was one of the electives at a Certificate 3 level. Provide work skill instruction holistically, again, no. Even though it's authentic and current, the work that she's given us, no. It's not valid. It's not assessing what it's meant to assess. It's not assessing work skill instruction. Actually, I might rethink that, because we did get evidence of her providing professional development to her peers. Remember, there was that evidence there. I think we might be okay with that one, actually. All right, and you know, she had roles as deputies, etc. So yeah, okay, we'll allow that one. Evidence provided for the last one, BSB, which is make a presentation, yes. So that's all fine. So far, 3 out of the 4 are working in her favour, but we've got to go a little bit deeper than that. Were the critical evidence requirements met? So we need to look at each of those units again. So we'll go into the DEL 301A, critical aspects of evidence. Okay, minimum of 3 training sessions. Yes, she's done at least that, so that's fine. So we'll close out of that one. And let's have a look at the next one. DEL 401A. For individuals within a group, but it wasn't specific. Critical aspects are what's interesting. This is the evidence guide again. We needed to make sure at least 2 consecutive sessions, 1 session delivered to a different learner group. Okay, so yep, so far meets the critical aspects. So we'll close out of that one. So we can hit yes and yes. Well, it's collectively overall. So let's just see if we keep moving through here. And then, yeah, I think it's going to meet the critical aspects. So that's not a problem for all of those. Underpinning knowledge and understanding demonstrated. Well, no, not the underpinning knowledge, because she didn't have the underpinning knowledge of the adult learning theories. Whoops, I've ticked the wrong one. Let me just go back there. Trying to speak and explain and fill in forms at the same time. Okay, so we'll tick no for that one, because this is what generates that gap training. Okay, so the employability skills demonstrated at the appropriate level was yes. And you can have a look at what those are in that previous validation. They're there at the bottom, the 8 employability skills. I'll just see if we can... No, it's not going to let me. Now, consistency of performance was satisfactory. Sufficiency of evidence was satisfactory. Now, we have to look at competency. Remember, one of them wasn't valid. It really didn't assess what it needed to assess, what it was required to assess. So DEL 401, and this is written wrong, so you can just go in and change that for me. The coding's wrong. All right, just save that as you go. You'll have to hit, yes, she was competent. Actually, adult trainers, adults in the workplace. I think really overall, because there's underpinning knowledge that's missing, and you know there wasn't the workplace based, I really think the only one we can give her is competency in the elective unit, which was make a presentation. All the others will require that underpinning knowledge and the workplace contexts with some activities there, some simulated activities. So we're just going to say not yet competent for those. They're all highlighted, and we're only going to say competent for that one unit. And that's something that you would have to have a conversation with another assessor about, because you know, you're making the decision that just on her recognition of prior learning evidence that she supplied alone wasn't going to get her across the line in 3 out of the 4 that she applied for. And then you're going to have a conversation with her about that and give a feedback of those results. And that was that first stage of the competency conversation. So now that we have that finding, we can talk to her at the beginning and say, listen, for one of them for sure, you got automatic recognition. Well, not automatic, we went through a process. But you're going to need gap training in adult learning theories. You're going to need gap training in some of the planning documents in a workplace, etc. So once you've done the gap training, then we'll reassess that and look at issuing a qualification. But we certainly could give you a statement of attainment for make a presentation now, but we couldn't give you statements of attainment for all 4. So now all you need to do is just complete that as I have. Go down to that last page again, where you've signed it just with an X is fine and today's date, and that's your piece of evidence. You've worked through with me, we've discussed, you didn't do a lot of talking, but you know, that's fair enough since this is a recording. You've been involved with a supervising assessor working through one of the validations. You've seen validation in action. Okay, you've seen that rule of evidence about is it valid, is it assessing what it's meant to assess. You've seen how all of that actually plays out. So well done on that. Make sure you save that document before closing out.